The Tunisian Revolution, known as the Jasmine Revolution in the media, was an intensive campaign of civil resistance that led to the ousting of longtime Tunisian President Zine El Abidine Ben Ali. The underlying causes that set the stage for the revolution were corruption, unemployment, dull economy, and shrinking press freedom. Ben Ali's family members received sweetheart deals thanks to Tunisia's vague line between business and government, while prices jumped and employment diminished. Unemployment rose to 14%, and everyday food items became harder to buy. The prices of milk had doubled, and young college graduates found themselves unable to make a living. Ben Ali made daily front cover appearances on practically every newspaper. With that and the backlash, Ben Ali's son-in-law bought a publishing house that printed 4 newspapers to put it to an end. The government, controlled by the president's millionaire relatives, blocked state-run television and kept a tight grip on the internet. The government extensively attempted to steal Facebook and Yahoo passwords of dissident online journalists, and sometimes they would succeed. Tunisian people felt betrayed by Ben Ali for turning the country into a police state. His betrayal was a key influence on the president's downfall. In December of 2010, the needy government showed its weakness by begging for money in any way possible. A 26-year-old vegetable vendor and provider of his family of 7, Mohamed Bouazizi, ignited nationwide protests against President Ben Ali. Bouazizi got ready to sell fruits and vegetables in Tunisia, but was interrupted by a police who allegedly slapped him because he refused to hand over bribes in his unauthorized cart. The humiliated vendor brought himself to the front of a government building and set himself on fire. Bouazizi's painful act angered Tunisian people across the whole country. Bouazizi's act of desperation triggered anger and protest across the whole country. The unfortunate situation came to symbolize the injustice and economic hardships suffered by many Tunisians under Ben Ali's regime. This sparked street protesters to chant slogans and demands throughout the country against the unemployment rate and poverty. Dozens of protesters were killed by police, attracting international criticism to the Tunisian government. Among the accusations for using excessive force, Ben Ali promised to create an investigative committee to inspect the government's reactions to the crisis. Battles between police and protesters continued and spread to the capital, where troops were sent out to control the chaos. All attempts to annihilate the rioting had failed. Because of that, on January 15th, Ben Ali promised to not seek another term as president when his term ended in 2014. He expressed regret over the deaths of protesters and vowed to reduce food prices and loosen the restrictions of internet use. Although his concessions did not satisfy the protesters, who continued to battle security forces and resulted in death, Ben Ali eventually transferred his authorities to the prime minister.
After the authorities were transferred to the Prime Minister on January 14th, he was placed as the President of Tunisia by Fouad Mebazaa. Chaos remained even with the replacement. Protesters continued to object to participation of politicians in the interim government. Mohamed Ghannouchi announced a new unity of government, including ministers from Ben Ali's regime. Although, the next day, many ministers from other parties resigned in response to fresh street protests. In February, the RCD activities were banned. The introduction of peace began when an election date was announced in mid-July of 2011. The election would be held on the 23rd of October that year. On that date, the Islamic Party was elected and a new constitution was written. The election opened a political system which drafted a democratic constitution. The transition to democracy was a long and painful process, but many people see Tunisia as a success story.